Welcome to the Italian Wine Podcast. I'm Rebecca Lawrence and this is Voices. In this set of interviews, I will be focusing on issues of inclusion, diversity and allyship through intimate conversations with wine industry professionals from all over the globe. If you enjoy listening, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com. Any amount helps us cover equipment, production and publication costs, and remember to subscribe and rate our show wherever you tune in. Welcome to the Italian Wine Podcast with me, Rebecca Lawrence. Today, the Voices series is super excited to meet someone who is a director of joy. We're here with Tsatsu Gbedemah, the director of joy for the new wine marketplace company, Wine+Peace. Welcome to the podcast, Tsatsu. I'm so happy you're here.
Hi, Rebecca. Thanks for having me.
So before we dive into the work that Wine+Peace are doing, which will be kind of the heart of the podcast today, I like our listeners to know a little bit about you first. So maybe you could give us a bit of background about who you are and how you came to find yourself working in the wine industry.
Definitely, yeah. So I'm Tsatsu Gbedemah. I was born and raised in Ghana, where I lived there for about 5 years. And then I moved to Kenya, where I lived there for about another 5 years. And I've been in Montreal living here for the past 14 years, essentially, going on, 15 since 2007. And I'm literally about to submit my final project tomorrow for my hospitality degree that I'm finishing here in Montreal.
Wow, sorry. I'm so sorry that we took you away from your studies, but maybe we're a welcome distraction.
Yeah, definitely.
So this is a super exciting time for you.
Yeah, it is. I'm about to finish this degree, and I have this job with Wine+Peace, which we'll get into, which is really exciting. And it's been a long few years. It's been interesting, and that's how I got into the wine industry.
Yeah. So you mentioned obviously Wine+Peace, which is what we're going to talk about today. So maybe you can tell our listeners what the company do and where did the idea for it come from?
Definitely. So Wine+Peace was founded by Katy and Tsatsu Decker, and essentially it's an online wine marketplace / marketing platform. And what we do is we source really good wine, responsibly handmade wine from producers in America. And how the idea came about was the co-founders, Sam and Katy, had a restaurant that they owned in Mexico. And while there, although Sam had an affinity for wine from a young age, he really developed, knowing a lot more about wine there, because a lot of the wine producers in Mexico would come to the restaurant. And so that was done, and they moved back to Martha's Vineyard, where they're originally from. And Sam was the wine director at a restaurant in Martha's Vineyard called Atria. And Katy had gone back to school, and she was doing a social psychology degree. And so with Sam in the restaurant and also pursuing his certificate for the Court of Master Sommelier, and Katy was in school for social psychology, and she was taking a lot of social justice classes. I guess the sort of perfect thing happened where while Sam was studying for the Court of Master Sommelier, he found it to be a little bit insular, and a lot of the focus was on just this very, this grandiose thing about wine, and it was very exclusive and not very inclusive. And Katy was doing a lot of social justice classes, and so she basically had told Sam that she had wondered, why are you pursuing this crazy complex thing about wine, and shouldn't wine just be a bit more accessible and more fun? And so they joined forces and brought about Wine+Peace, which is originally a wine education company, and it has evolved into what it is now, which is an online wine marketplace highlighting amazing American wine producers, and that have a lot more context, a lot more stories, and just a lot more beautiful, in my opinion.
I have to say you're totally right about a lot more beautiful. I'm sure you're right about the stories as well, and obviously we'll get to that. But one of the things that really strikes you when you first go on the site is that it does look approachable and accessible. It's modern. It really does look like somewhere where you want to go to learn more about wine, because it's just, it looks really joyful.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And that's what attracted me to it. So how I got involved with Wine+Peace is I was working at a pizza place here in Montreal, and this lady walks in with a baby stroller, and she had this very, I don't know how to describe it, but it was this sort of like very bright pink cocoon that her baby was in, because we have like very harsh winters here in Montreal. This was in December when I first met her. And so right away when she spoke to me, I knew she wasn't from Montreal just from her accent. And it was genuinely just curiosity that, I guess brought me to her. And I was asking her like where she was from. And she said she was from Martha's Vineyard. And I asked why she was in Montreal. And she told me that she had come here with her husband to meet a design company here in Montreal. And they fell in love with the city after like 3 days being here, and they signed a lease, and they've been here for 2 years since.
Wow, that's so awesome. So how did you come to make the leap from the pizza place to director of joy at Wine+Peace? Like, connect the dots for me.
Yeah, definitely. So she came into the pizza place and we just really connected. I was generally really curious about who she was and where she was from. And although like sometimes my curiosity has gotten me into trouble, I think it didn't this time, which I'm really grateful about. And so she told me that she had this company, and then I checked it out. And I think like you, I had the same experience. I was like, wow, this is a really cool company. The design is amazing. It seems really welcoming, and it just seems like somewhere I want to work at. And then so I looked more into it, and then I even texted one of my best friends, Sierra, and I said and I told her, hey, I discovered this company. This lady came into Pizza Tony, and I want to work there, but I don't even know what I'm going to do. But I definitely want to work there. And so fast forward a few days, I met her again at the pizza place, and then we really connected in speaking about hospitality and Danny Meyer, and this whole thing about hospitality. And she said, it's hard to express hospitality with an online wine marketplace. And so that's when I said, oh, maybe that's how I can add to the company with my hospitality background, and sort of help build the systems where it can make, just what you would receive a box essentially of wine, just add that sense of hospitality. And when, sort of go to a Shake Shack and you feel like welcomed, or you go to Starbucks, and so that's how I came into working with Wine+Peace as director of joy. I sent her an email saying, hey, these are some ideas that I have. And one thing led to the other, and here I am.
That's amazing. I love that idea of like finding something that you really like and just going for it. Like, that's so gutsy. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
And also this idea of like, being able to bring all of the like important skills and knowledge that you learn in hospitality to an online platform. Now it's kind of beginning to make sense to me now why the platform seems approachable and has a little bit more to it than it's not just a wine marketplace. Like, it feels like a place that has been built with hospitality in mind, with that kind of welcoming, customer-led approach. And I think that's really fascinating to hear that was specifically something that they were going for, that you guys are going for.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And they really had that, they really mastered that essentially. And I just came in at when all of that was essentially done. And I just was hoping to like provide the value that I can from the things that I've learned the past 3 years in the restaurant industry.
So what is it specifically that your role does? Can you give us maybe is there a typical day for a director of joy for a wine marketplace?
Definitely, yeah. So if you were to, I guess, maybe write that on a CV or on a LinkedIn profile, it might say Director of Customer Experience. And so essentially, I helped build some of the customer experience systems that we have on the website. So, for example, if you went on the website now, we have live chat, and the idea behind that was having access to a SOM when you're on the website, as you would like in a actual physical brick and mortar store. So an online website, sometimes you don't really have a person that you could ask questions to. And so with the live chat, I am hoping to fix that. And people can come on when they're shopping for wine, or they're trying to buy a wine and they're finding it hard. They can ask me a question, And by ask me a question, that means I text Sam right away and ask him, hey, questions, what do you suggest, and so on. Because my knowledge of wine is still quite, I guess, novice, and Sam is an expert, I would say.
That's a really lovely feature, though, because one of the real problems, I think, with particularly e-commerce of something that is potentially very complex, like wine, where maybe there's terminology that someone doesn't understand, maybe it's a grape variety that they haven't come across before, a producer they don't know. It's really quite, because wine is also, for many people, an investment. It's not every day that you buy like a nice bottle of sustainably sourced wine. To have that opportunity for your customers to go, oh, I don't know anything about this, but it looks interesting, and then just be able to write and get some advice immediately. Like you say, you're taking that brick and mortar kind of extra personal touch and making it accessible online, which particularly at the moment, obviously with everything that's been happening in the world, giving that extra personal touch online is so vital for e-commerce, I think.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And so even like I sometimes call customers and I get to find out that, they're passionate about photography or they're avid runners and things like that. And just sort of collecting all these little details about them that just breaks that sort of, I guess, computer wall that we were in, especially now with the pandemic and everything. And aside from that, there's a bunch of other things I do for Wine+Peace, but that's essentially, I guess, my corporate objective, if you will.
So obviously you're collaborating with producers in order to put this platform together. So how many producers do you have collaborating with you at the moment, and what are the plans for expansion?
Definitely. So currently we have about 27, 28 producers. I'm not quite sure, but it's around that area. And plans for expansion would probably be a better question for Sam and Katy. I mean, it would be cool to see this expand maybe to Italy like you have, or around the world, or maybe, well, Canada might be a bit difficult because the laws are very insane with alcohol. So we'll see, but it will definitely be interesting to like have this sort of concept in other countries.
And can you talk a little bit about the selection process? Because I was really excited to see on the website that you have this quote, what is blind tasting after all, if not a willful disregard for meaningful context? And I really like this quote because I personally am very interested in, knowing more about the wine through where it comes from and who's made it. So why is context so important for Wine+Peace?
Right. Thank you. Great question. So in terms of the selection process, I know that Sam had a sort of master being in the industry and dealing with so many different winemakers and just people in the industry. He had a sort of, I guess, maybe we could call it a master list of the people he really admired in the wine industry and wine that he generally just really liked. And so this is essentially what we have on the website right now, is people that generally like. They make amazing wines for a really great price, and beyond that, there's different things that they do that make us want to sell their wine. So if you go on our website, there's 5 different values that we have, which is human, community, pioneer, environment, and women. And so essentially, all the winemakers on our website fit into these 5 different categories. And so to answer your question about blind tasting and the context that we have aside from just that, with blind tasting, I feel that it's this sort of, I don't know how to explain it, but it's, if you don't get this note of like gooseberry or all these sort of different flavor profiles or these tanning structures and all this, people might feel that you don't know wine. But then we look at the winemakers on our website and, like for example, Adelschein, they bring a medical truck like to their vineyard for their employees who like have a medical checkup. And we have also like Steve Matthiessen, I believe. His vines are trestled a little bit higher, so people don't have to like bend over and break their back to pick the grapes. And then there's also people like Jason Edward Charles, who's just a really nice person, and so all these different winemakers sort of are on our website because we want to essentially sell wine and provide wine with more of a story to it. And, and we saw that a lot with the whole like farm to table movement with Alice Waters, and saying, and with industrialization of wine, a lot of the attention has been taken away from, who the winemakers are, where are they from, what's their name, what are the things that they do that just make that add to the, I guess, entire ecosystem of the world. Are they using regenerative farming practices? Do they treat their employees well? Which is such a crazy concept, and things like that, and so that's really how I guess Sam and Katy chose the winemakers. And, as we're going along, we get some winemakers reach out to us. There's some winemakers that I know, like Cass, who's a chief operating officer. She really, really loves. We also have Jill Davis, who joined the team recently. And then there's me. Maybe I'll see a winemaker that I like and say, hey, let's try and get their wine on the platform because they're good human beings.
I think that's fantastic. And definitely, obviously, we've already seen this happening in the food industry, but to begin to see this more in the wine industry, and specifically to see a platform like Wine+Peace that's dedicated to it. It's not like just an offset. It's not like a selection of, you can click on the tab on the website and here's 6 winemakers. It's the entire reason behind the project. And I think it's also very interesting that for me, I've seen the wine industry develop, and a lot of the kind of new generation of drinkers drinking less, but choosing in a much more targeted way. They want the experience of the wine. They want to know where it comes from. They want to know if the working conditions are good, if the soil is organic, all of these things. And I think that's been really important and becoming increasingly important in the industry. So having a platform dedicated to it is beginning to fill that need for a new generation of wine drinkers. So I think that's fantastic. And related to that, I wanted to ask about, so you've got all this amazing stuff. How do you then make sure you communicate it, and specifically communicate it to the people who want to hear, to, Gen Z, millennials who are trying to make more of these choices? I'm not saying other generations aren't, but they are particularly, the new wine drinkers are approaching wine, I think, in this way.
Right. That's a really good question. And, we're doing this by just our website, and our social medias and even ad campaigns that we run. But I think like the really important thing, and that's even another reason why I was really attracted to Wine+Peace, was that it just made it very simple, and it wasn't all these like fancy terminology, all these fancy wording, and just sort of, I guess, sort of like intellectual masturbation, and just, it just made it very simple and accessible. And, and we do Instagram lives. I do Instagram lives with Sam, and, we get the winemakers on. Sometimes like I'll ask a question that I can understand, and I definitely don't ask questions that I don't understand. And so I hope that's a way that other people who, like me, who are maybe new to wine or very like experienced in wine, can bring all these, I guess, very complicated, complex subjects and make them very simple. And, one of the next projects, without giving too much away, is we want to go more into video. And so with that, there'll be more wine education there, and just maybe like simplifying it. And so there's been moments where I'll speak with Sam about a subject, and, even like, for example, like coming up with ideas for the clubhouses that we have, he'll pitch these ideas, and I'll say like, I don't really understand that. And he might say, well, that's why we shouldn't do it, because it's like just too complicated, and we should just focus on this simpler thing that's more fun. And so that's ways that I guess we're communicating that to people.
Yeah, I've particularly liked your Instagram lives because of that element of it. Just, they are so approachable, and I think that's really important. And it completely ties in with, like you say, trying to be educational as well as a marketplace, and trying to make it educational in a way that's approachable. Because, as you say, so much of wine education is not, and this is a real problem. And I think as well that there's a trope in the industry for people to surround themselves with other people with the same level of knowledge. And so there's this assumption that everyone has that level of knowledge, or they're stupid. But actually, it's about, like you say, simplifying it, changing what the question is, and just sharing a passion for it. So you demonstrate that it's not something scary. you shouldn't feel stupid if you don't know something, because we were all there at some point.
Right.
And it's just the start of everyone's wine journey.
Exactly. Yeah.
I also really liked on the website that you have interviews with people about their wine buying habits. There's a really nice article on the website that interviews a full range of people. And I think that's a really nice touch, because it demonstrates that you've actually thought about, how people's wine buying habits are different. And maybe that actually one of the things, some people are going to be looking for that kind of like $10 bottle of wine. Some people are going to be looking for something for a special occasion. And I thought that was a really nice touch on the website, to have those more personalized stories, and to take something like wine that can be seen maybe, and e-commerce that can seem a little impersonal, and just add that personal touch.
Yeah, absolutely. And, when you speak about wine buying habits, there was a very long period of my life where I was buying wine bottles with like really cool labels, because I thought those were all the best wines, and those are all the natural wines, quote unquote. I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for that, but that's just what I thought natural wine was. If you have a really cool, indie label, then that's what it is. So, but then as I've, gotten to know more about wine, I've discovered that, it's not only that, but I also think like that's not okay. If I'm going to buy a wine because I simply like the design of it, I think that's also okay, or am I buying a wine because I'm eating this type of food, which is also okay. And I think like there's a lot of, there's been all this sort of, I guess, rules that have been made in wine, like, oh, you can't do this, you can't eat fish with red wine and blah, 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 blah. But I had a teacher in school, and he said, listen, typically you drink white wine with fish. He's like, but if the customer says that they want the red wine, you just give them the red wine, And so I think I've used that to like sort of, I guess, guide me through my wine journey, and just not really subscribe to all these rules and all this, I guess, criteria that we need to have, and just have more of an experience and just have more fun with it, because wine can be really, really fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically alcoholic grape juice. It should be fun.
Exactly, yeah.
One of the things that I often tell people who come to me who maybe don't know a lot about wine and ask me like, oh, how do I choose? I'm in the store, or I'm on the website and there's so much information and I don't know. I often say to them, well, like, if you don't know exactly what you're looking for and there's no one to ask, then buy it by the label. Because even if, particularly if you're buying for friends, if you've got a dinner party, you've got friends around, even if the wine is terrible, you've got a story to tell because you chose it because of the label. And that's fun. Like there's no right or wrong answer in that situation. It's like, oh, this wine's terrible. Yeah, but look how cool the label is. Like,
yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. I think throw out the rules.
Absolutely.
So we're running out of time, and I have to ask about Italian wine, because this is the Italian Wine Podcast, and if I forget to ask about Italian wine, the producers kill me. So obviously you guys are focused on the American market at the moment, but given your background, and I've just learned that you were working in a pizza restaurant, so I'm assuming you've eaten a lot of pizza. Is there one Italian wine that particularly you have enjoyed, or is there maybe a pizza pairing that you particularly enjoyed from your time working with pizza?
So yeah, to answer your question, a couple of weeks ago I had an IG Live with Sam. We were looking at sparkling wine, and so I bought this Pet Nat. The grape variety was the Falangina, and the producer is Fattoria di Vaira. And really good Pet Nat that I had. I really, really enjoyed it. But I also want to throw that question back at you, because I am learning about wine. I'm going through all these different grape varieties and all these different types of wine. What's the next wine from Italy you think I should have?
If you're having pizza, you should have a Lambrusco di Sobara. So sparkling red wine, but Sobara is the like lightest and more floral of it. And that with a margarita for me is just amazing, because you've got the slightly kind of like creaminess of the cheese with the fresh mozzarella, which goes really well with this acidity of the grape, slightly herbal. Yeah, I'm a huge advocate for sparkling red wine and pizza.
Awesome. What was the grape variety again?
It's Lambrusco di Sobara, Sorbara.
Okay, perfect.
Tsatsu Gbedemah, thank you so much for joining me on the Italian Wine Podcast today, for taking time out of the final few days of your studying. Where can our listeners find you and also Wine+Peace online and on social media?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And you can go on our website, wineandpeace.com. We're on Instagram at @drinkwineandpeace. My personal Instagram is @Tsatsu, just TSACSU. And a lot of people are jealous that I have just my first name as my Instagram handle. So I like to flex it once in a while.
That's like the coolest. Yeah, I was going to say, that's a total flex. That's super cool.
Yeah. But those are places you can find me.
Awesome. We'll make sure to tag you and Wine+Peace when our social goes out. Guys, go and check out the website and see what they're doing. Really exciting to see sustainable, socially justified wines being given a marketplace. Thanks to everyone for listening. Don't forget to follow us on social media, subscribe, and of course, donate on the website to make sure we can keep these great conversations flowing.
Listen to the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Himalaya FM, and more. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the show. If you enjoy listening, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com. Any amount helps cover equipment, production, and publication costs. Until next time, chin chin.